was extemporaneous. It wasn't even called I Have a Dream. It was called something else. No More See No More. Or you listen to the mountaintop speech night before he died, not even realizing that was really a 46-minute and 15-second speech where he really gave a really true understanding of the blueprint moving forward. That was really how to maximize our economic power. If you even go back to the I Have a Dream speech on August 28th, 1963, he only mentioned equality once. He always talked about freedom. If you go back to go to all of his speeches and his writings, Dr. King talked about freedom. Whitney Young in the Urban League, you might have heard him talk about equality. You might have heard Roy Wilkins with the NAACP talk about equality. No, King understood freedom. Because what he was saying was, he wanted a situation where the moment somebody was black was born, they had the exact same rights as somebody white. What he was saying is, I don't want something passed. I don't want something voted on every 25 years. I don't want something authorized. I don't want something required by the courts. Freedom means the moment you come into this earth, you have the exact same rights. That's freedom. We talk about freedom of speech, but many of us are scared to open our mouths. We talk about when we see wrongdoing and we begin to say, well, no, if I do this or do that, this might happen on my job. See, same thing happens on our jobs all the time. We got folks who I call parking lot militants. Stuff go wrong in your job and you suck it up, but wait till you get to the parking lot. Oh! All of a sudden, Farrakhan in the parking lot. You're scared to say something when you're in the building. Yes. It's interesting when I did the Monique show when I was at CNN, and he said, Roland, I'm scared because you say stuff on TV. I'm scared you might get fired. I said, Monique, let me help you out. I said, I start every job I've ever had with the premise, you're going to get fired anyway. I mean, if you really think about it, three things going to happen. You're going to stay there forever. You're going to leave. Or they're going to ask you to leave. It's only three options on the job. And to me, there's nothing worse than seeing things on your job and you say nothing. Amen. And then what happens is you do all the right thing. You come on time. You get there early. You stay late. And you do, but you that perfect black person on the job, or white or Asian or whatever, you that perfect person, then you get laid off, now you mad as hell. Now you're at home cussing and fussing, man, I did all this sort of stuff, did everything right, I was a perfect employee, and then I got laid off anyway. Then you got me. Gave them hell, kicked they behind, so I get laid off, I'm good. Because I'm perfectly comfortable with what I did. And I know some folks can't think that way, but see, do understand, when you saw me on CNN for 6 years, I was giving more hell behind the camera than what you saw on TV. Because for me, it wasn't just about seeing a black face on the screen. I wanted black executives. I wanted black executive producers and black senior producers and black bookers and black live producers and black camera directors. That's what I wanted. Because I wasn't interested in the status quo. I wasn't interested in that because the reason I talked about Daniel Holtzclaw, because see, when you don't have black folks in those positions, that's how they then don't cover our stories. Right. Because you can't have somebody who is an executive or executive producer or a senior producer or a show host and the story still get ignored. See, that's why I was willing to stand there and fight for somebody else, because I wanted to make sure that somebody who came after me was not going to be in the same position, because I just don't believe walking through a place and then you go through and there's no evidence that you were there. There's no evidence that you actually fought for something and it was there. So that's why when I was at the White House Christmas party on Thursday night, and I saw several of our former CNN executives, and they looked at me, they were kind of weary. I'm like, yeah, I'm still black, and I'm still here. Because see, when you understand who you are and why you are trying to fight for something, when you understand the concept of freedom, that changes your whole view. You look at things differently. You approach them differently. When you are about freedom, there's a fearlessness that is in your voice and in your attitude. When you're trying to be free, you're not trying to be content. Right. When you're trying to be free, you're just not trying to coexist. When you're trying to be free, you're understanding that what happens today is not about you. It's really about your kids' kids. Wow. And so what happens is many of us right now are just sort of wading through this world, tap dancing, and then just hoping everything fall into place, or really hoping somebody else do all the heavy lifting, and then we get to sneak into the room and go, yay. See, I know I'm making some of y'all uncomfortable, but do understand something, okay? If y'all wanted to be comfortable, you could have called my wife, who's an ordained minister, and she could have prayed with you, and then y'all could have meditated and all that stuff. God gave her a spirit of comfort. God gave me a spirit of discomfort. My job is to make you uncomfortable, because at some point we've got to shake out of the doldrums, and at some point realize that the suit might be cute, the dress might be nice, you might have all the wonderful jewelry on, but it don't mean a damn thing if you're walking around literally with shackles that are invisible and you still not free. And so if we're talking about how do we move forward in terms of the 21st century, you have to start at some point where you're saying, I am going to be a freedom fighter. See, it's amazing how we talk about the civil rights movement, and we talk about folks, and we don't really spend time on those phrases. That was the reason they were called freedom singers. That was the reason they were called freedom fighters. It's also a reason why some of us called it the civil rights movement, and some of us called it the black freedom movement. Right. See, you take those two phrases and they have two totally different meanings. See, civil rights movement ain't specific to black folks. Right. That's a nice phrase that can apply to anybody. We see it now with all kind of folks saying they fighting for civil rights, fighting for civil rights, fighting for. We got folks who fighting for civil rights and who want black folks to fight with them on their civil rights, but you don't see them on black rights. Well, let me be real clear. I mean, you got folks who are fighting for LGBT rights and want black folks there with them, but they don't exist when you're talking about black freedom. You got folks who are Latino, who are talking about walk with us, but we're saying, but where are you? So do understand, there was a pastor in Nebraska. He had some pro-lifers who came to him, and they said that they appreciated his position on the issue of being pro-life, and they said they wanted him to march with them in this major pro-life rally. He said, there's no problem. He said, but I also want y'all to roll with me in our community, because we're looking at these crack houses in our neighborhoods, and we want to deal with them. They literally said, well, no, that's your problem. See, they saw the issue of abortion as being our problem, but they didn't see the issue of those very lives being destroyed by crack as being our problem too. Either you pro-life before they born and after you born, and it ain't just either or. I hear you. See, again, I know that's making some folks uncomfortable, because you're like, I can't believe he said that, because we got some folk in the room who are gay and lesbian or Latino. But see, it don't matter, because if you understand the issue of fighting for what's right, then it don't become a buffet. All right. All right. See, when I go across this country and when I see the battle right now with affirmative action, when you saw the Supreme Court hearing oral arguments in the case of the University of Texas, and then you had a white female who was standing there talking about she couldn't get into the University of Texas because somebody black took her spot. No, you just wasn't good enough. But the problem I have is when you have African Americans who are standing out there fighting for affirmative action, and I got white women who are too quiet, because if you actually go back and break down the history of affirmative action, started under President Richard Nixon, pushed by and developed by Arthur Fletcher, what you will realize is no group of people have benefited more from affirmative action in America than white women. Now, if you want to dispute that, come on. Because if you show me any city or county or state and federal, when they talk about federal dollars for contracts, what you will discover is they have a category. You have black, Hispanic, Asian, and women. If you ask the question, if you're a black woman, which category do you go in, they're going to tell you black. If you're a Hispanic woman, you go into Hispanic. If you're Asian, you go into Asian, which means the W really ain't for women. It should be WW, white women. If you go into most places, women have more of the contracts than anybody else, which means that's more white women than anybody else. I'm just telling you what's a fact. If you get mad, that's your problem. Amen. But I'm talking about the issue of freedom. I'm talking about being honest about what's going on. I'm talking about how we confront what is going on, and how it is when we spend a significant amount of time expending our energy on somebody else's fights and somebody else's battles, but then we begin to say, where are you when we need you to show up? See, I got no problem with reciprocity, but this ain't going to be a one-way street. See, you can't have a situation if you're LGBT, but you quiet on black transgenders being killed. You can't be an AIDS advocate, but you quiet when those black AIDS centers are not getting the resources they need, when the face of AIDS right now in America is that of a black man or a black woman. See, I've been covering these stories for a long time, and so it's interesting when people say, man, how you know? Because I'm like, don't think this is new. Right. I'm talking about how do you fight for freedom. Starting point is fighting for freedom. I talked about freedom singers and freedom fighters. Howard Zinn, in his book of The New Abolitionists, when he was talking about the SNCC workers, he details this amazing story of these young SNCC folk, and if you don't know SNCC, hit the person next to you. Well, just go to Google, put in SNCC. Because one of the reasons you need to understand, because look, trust me, it's the folks right now trying to look all smart and cute, that you ain't got no idea what SNCC is, and you pulling your phone out like all undercover under the table going, SNCC. And you hoping you get a signal down here like, I got to Google what that means. But if you look at all the civil rights groups during the 60s, there was no greater group that drove advancement than SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And so that was it. Howard Zinn tells this story of this young sister who was beaten viciously by cops, and many of these SNCC workers were thrown into some of the most shameful and decrepit prisons in America. And this sister was beaten. Her face was swollen, and her eyes were swollen. Her nose, all totally swollen. She couldn't even talk. And so she tried to speak, and they said, we can't hear you, can't hear you. And somebody leaned closer, and they literally put their ear on her lips, and she said, freedom. She couldn't say anything else, but she said, freedom. Because she understood what it is she got her behind kicked for, because she said, I'm willing to die for freedom. I'm willing to put my life on the line for freedom. And when you begin to listen to those folks who were freedom singers, and it was those songs that got them through. When you heard somebody say, I ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. When you heard them say, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. There's a consistent theme here, because every day all they were thinking about was freedom.